Hello, I'm John Cunningham, and welcome to another episode of the RedChip Money Report. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is Aptorum Group, stock symbol APM on the NASDAQ. Aptorum is a pharmaceutical company dedicated to developing and commercializing novel therapeutics to tackle unmet medical needs, with a current drug pipeline that includes indications in orphan diseases, infectious diseases, and metabolic diseases. We'll learn more when we speak with Aptorum's CEO, Darren Louie, later in the show. Next up is ASPisotopes, stock symbol ASPI on the NASDAQ. ASPisotopes is an emerging leader in isotope enrichment technology with wide application potential across a variety of industries. The company is initially focused on the production of molybdenum 100, targeting the $3 billion medical imaging market. We'll learn more about this initiative and other opportunities ASPisotopes plans to pursue when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to the first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book Small Stocks, Big Money. Get to know management, look for intelligence, a high level of integrity, strong communication skills, and make sure they understand their products and business well. This quote comes from Charles Diker, an investment manager featured in Chapter 8 of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for just $18. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Aptorum Group.
Today we're here with Darren Louie, CEO of Aptorum Group, NASDAQ listed, ticker APM. Darren, thank you for being with us today.
It's lovely to be here.
Aptorum Group is a clinical stage pharmaceutical company dedicated to developing and commercializing novel therapeutics to tackle unmet medical needs. Let's start with an overview of your pipeline, Darren.
Sure. So Aptorum Group, we're a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company. We have four key assets that are the main driver in our pipeline right now. Firstly, it's the ALS4, which is a small molecule drug targeting MRSA. Which we're shortly entering into what we call a phase 2A clinical trials that's subject to the FDA's clearance of the IND package. Our second asset is our SACT1, which is a repurposed small molecule born out of our own discovery unit called the SMART Act. It's targeting neuroblastoma, and we are shortly also entering into phase 1B2A clinical trial, subject to, again, shortly the clearance of our clinical trial design by the US FDA. Our third asset is our PathDX liquid biopsy technology, which is a cutting-edge technology using next-generation sequencing as an approach to diagnose unknown and unbiased infectious diseases currently affecting patient using their blood sample. As you may well know, liquid biopsy is a very hot area right now and provides a very deep sequencing analysis on a genetic level in identifying accurately the type of infectious disease in our technology that is currently affecting the patients. We're currently in clinical validation with that technology, and we'll be able to target commercialization over the course of next year. And lastly, our fourth asset is our Native as well, a women's health nutraceutical, which is currently in commercialization. We started in Q4 2022 over in Asia, and we're currently actively expanding into the other major continents as well.
Aptorum is currently commercializing its Nativus Well women's health nutraceutical product. What are the plans and current status to commercialize this product?
Sure. So it's a very exciting product. It's one of our first product to be commercialized in our pipeline. We worked on this asset for quite a number of years, developing our own proprietary formulation for this very novel nutraceutical product targeting women's menopause and peripausal and premenopausal cycles. As you can appreciate, the women's menopause market is extremely significant in the multi-billion-dollar industry a year. And we've since announced our first commercialization jurisdiction last September. It was in Hong Kong, where we first started to commercialize and distribute this product. And actually, we're now ready to commercialize in the Chinese markets as well under a very large e-commerce platform called the JD.com platform to allow us to penetrate into what is a significant market size in China, which has significant demand for this type of women's health nutraceutical product targeting women's age between 45 and 65 years old. We're now also actively working on delivering this product to be commercializable in the United States and Europe starting in Q2 this year, 2023. Working with relevant partners there. We're targeting major platforms such as Amazon, for example, where we'll be looking to actively distribute this product in the United States. Currently, we're targeting for Q2 2023. So we're very excited by this product, and we believe there's a significant demand in improving women's health and also alleviate some of the side effects associated with menopause, which is obviously a significant issue for women reaching the menopausal age.
Darren, AI seems to be in all the news lately. What's Aptorum's proprietary SmartAct platform, and how will SmartAct allow Aptorum to identify potential candidates that can be repurposed for selected orphan or unmet diseases?
Sure. So as we've announced almost 2 years ago now, we've launched our SmartAct drug discovery platform on the basis of the fact that we have a library of over 2,600 FDA-approved small molecule drug library on our computer systems, where we have what we call a in silico screening against selected targets to find a potential drug that could be repurposed into tackling some of these highly unmet diseases. Of that, obviously, we have now outnumbered a number of oncology diseases. One of our first oncology indication was neuroblastoma, which has culminated into our discovery of our current SACT1 asset. It was out of a FDA-approved drug library where we were able to identify a small molecule drug that was previously approved for treatment of HIV to now be repurposed, targeting a very hard-to-treat pediatric cancer disease called neuroblastoma, effectively cancer on the nerve tissue of children primarily. It has a 40% survival rate. At the moment, it's a disease that's highly regarded and highly focused by the US FDA. And so as a result that since last year, we've completed our first phase 1 study for this SACT1 molecule, again, with huge amount of support from the US FDA. We have just completed what we call our pre-IND discussion with the FDA, and we're shortly to be submitting our clinical trial design, which is a phase 1b/2a neuroblastoma patient clinical trial design to be conducted on our SACT1 drug. So we hopefully will be able to update the market very shortly on the status of this, and we're very excited to be able to start testing the drug on neuroblastoma patients starting in Q2 2023 onwards, and be able to get that data, proof of concept data, out to the market as soon as we can.
In January, Aptorum announced the publication of yet another paper co-authored by a member of your team on Aptorum's PATHS DX technology. Tell us more about this liquid biopsy-driven rapid pathogen molecular diagnostics technology and its importance to Aptorum.
Sure. So since the COVID days, many patients around the world have been infected by what they call fever of unknown origin, and also affecting many patients who are suffering from sepsis, that is infection of the blood, as well as much larger population, 3% on average of the population that is suffering from what we call immunocompromised, affecting their body, basically a low immune system. So a huge significant market, and at the moment, the existing technology is highly inadequate, namely things like blood culture and PCR testing, which are both confined to very specific known set of bacteria or virus, and very difficult to scale up, although quite cheap, but actually very inaccurate if you actually talk to the clinician world. The world right now, especially in the hospital setting, is sorely in need of technology which is provide a deeper analysis and accurate analysis to the genetic level to identify what they call unknown pathogens. And to give you an example, right now, our database contains over 17,000 plus pathogens in our database, and this is genetic sequencing data of both virus, DNA, RNA-based viruses, bacteria, and fungus on our database right now. And the relevance to this is that actually our technology of the PathDX allow us to prepare based on basically a small drop of blood, 0.5 ml of blood, allowing us to prepare the sample and perform what we call NGS, so next generation sequencing analysis, effectively reading the genetic data of the pathogens itself, whilst able to suppress the background noise of the human DNA that's affecting the sample, and able to accurately read out on what we call an unbiased basis the exact composition of the pathogens currently affecting the patient through that small drop of blood. It's developed to be highly cost-effective in mind, with a very fast turnaround. We're targeting less than 24 hours turnaround and an extremely deep set of analysis and data against as I said, over 17,000 plus pathogen genetic sequence in our database to provide an accurate picture for potentially clinicians and physicians alike, enabled to treat the patients with the appropriate amount of antibiotics or antivirals, and as well as actually reducing eventually the mortality and morbidity of these patients suffering from fever of unknown origin, sepsis, or even immunocompromised patients. So we're very excited by that. The paper was a publication based on our clinical validation data from last year. We're currently looking actively to expand our clinical validation sites beyond Singapore into major jurisdictions, including the UK, United States, and over parts of Asia as well, to be able to broaden the adoption of this technology. So this year, we're very much looking at scaling up our clinical validation data, targeting further publications of the data coming out from it. So far, based on the limited patient data that we have, we were able to achieve very impressive sensitivity and specificity, well over 95% on what is a very small patient sample, and that is a fantastic result. And these sensitivity specificity have already reached commercializable acceptance levels. So we're very impressed by that, and that paper pertains obviously the details of that set of data from our last year's clinical validation data. So we're looking to continue to drive and diverse our validation sites and data, and obviously make those public as soon as we have.
This seems like an incredibly deep pipeline. What milestones can investors expect from Aptorum in the first half of 2023 and beyond?
Absolutely. So as I said, we're currently working on the two drugs, which is ALS4 and SACT1. We're actively moving that into the very critical proof of concept trials. So these are typically the phase 2A for ALS4 and what we call phase 1B2A for SACT1. So these are involving actual MRSA patients as well as neuroblastoma patients respectively in testing these drugs, looking to find optimal dose as well as initial readout of proof of efficacy as well. So very excited about two drugs programs. And of course, our Nativa as well, nutraceutical, where, as I said earlier, we're currently actively commercializing in other markets, including the US, Europe, and China. And actually, these are obviously will provide near-term revenue for the company for what is a highly demanded and unmet women's health menopause market as well. And lastly, our PathDX technology, and again, undergoing extremely rapid expansion in terms of our validation sites and validation data. Over this year, we'll continue to discuss in collaborations with major laboratories, genetic sequencing companies in achieving potential collaboration on this technology with the aim to apply for a commercialization ready status over the course of next year to target this highly demanded NGS market for infectious diseases.
Darren, congratulations on all the progress you've made and the recent commercialization of your product in women's health. Why should investors take an interest in the Aptorum Group right now?
Absolutely. And we believe that we have plenty to offer in Aptorum. As I said, we have four major assets that have multiple shots on goal right now, starting with our ALS4, which is a first-in-class small molecule drug targeting MRSA-based infection, a high-priority development target, as mentioned by the WHO. And this product, we are now shortly looking to commence our phase 2A clinical trials, subject to, again, the US FDA's final approval of the IND package. Our second drug is our SACT1, which is our repurposed small molecule drug born out of our SACT Smart Act platform. SACT1 currently is also getting ready for what we call a phase 1B2A clinical trials, again, just subject to the final approval of the clinical trial design by the US FDA. Our third asset, our PathDX liquid biopsy technology, again, very cutting edge NGS-based sequencing technology, currently in a highly unmet infectious disease market, we're currently looking to expand further validation sites in ready for commercialization for 2024 around the world of this technology as well. And last but not least, our Nativus World Women's Health Nutraceutical, which is targeting a major multi-billion-dollar market in women's health, especially when menopausal age women, aged between 45 to 65 years old. As we have recently announced, we are now expanding our distribution capability into a major continent, which is China, in partnership with a major e-commerce company, JD.com, in distributing our product of the women's health nutraceutical. And we'll be looking to continue to drive the expansion over the second quarter into the major markets, including the United States, through local distribution partners there. So we're very excited about that, and we'll continue to update our shareholders of these exciting results.
Very compelling story. Thank you for sharing it with us today, Darren. I really look forward to these new developments in 2023 unfolding, your commercialization. Thank you again.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Now, to get more information on Aptorum Group, visit aptoruminfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Aptorum. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy at Amazon.com today for just $18. Now let's move on to our next interview today with ASPisotopes.
Paul, it's such a pleasure to work with you and to have you here on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Paul, ASPisotopes, an isotope enrichment company developing and commercializing isotopes of elements or molecules with low atomic masses. For viewers new to the story, please first introduce us to ASPisotopes and then give us any important updates and milestones on your company.
Thanks. Yes, ASPisotopes is a company where we develop and commercialize ways of enriching isotopes that can be used to enable many technologies and industries right now and in the future. We're at a pretty interesting time right now for the isotope industry, in that Russia has been the largest supplier of isotopes to the world. And so we're seeing some supply side issues. A lot of governments and companies are questioning or we're looking at who they do business with. At the same time, on the demand side, there's a lot of new uses for isotopes emerging right now that will, for new healthcare applications and advanced technologies such as quantum computing, and also green energy, such to allow us to meet climate goals in the future. And there aren't any suppliers of those isotopes. So again, there's a lot of new uses, and we're looking at supplying some of those. At the same time that many of the traditional suppliers are maybe having problems supplying, or as a supply side issues. So it's an interesting time in the industry right now. We actually reached a major milestone our company did recently. We actually started our first plant up, which is probably the biggest milestone for any company when they start up. And this plant will enrich carbon-14. And actually the entire world's supply of carbon-14 used to come from Russia. There isn't any available right now. And so we've been asked by a Canadian company to enrich carbon-14 for them, and they will then sell it to the end market. And so that plant started up recently. It will start by enriching oxygen, and then it'll start enriching carbon-14.
Paul, that is very exciting news about the opening of the new plant. Congratulations on that. Paul, last November, ASPisotopes announced that it had entered into a 25-year supply agreement with the Beijing Research Institute of Chemical Engineering Metallurgy for highly enriched molybdenum-100. That agreement is valued at up to $27 million a year. Give us some more of the highlights of that groundbreaking deal.
Yes, actually the contract's pretty confidential between the two parties. You've kind of summarized it pretty well, but obviously that's the first contract we'd actually signed. And that will, it's a pretty big contract for a company of our size. We intend to start supplying them during 2023. And that'll come from another plant we're constructing in South Africa as well. We have two plants currently under construction. The first, we just actually started up, as I said, for carbon-14. The second is a much larger plant that's capable of enriching things such as molybdenum-100 and silicon-28. And so we'll use that plant to supply the Chinese contract. And we're in discussions with lots of other potential customers too for materials. As I said earlier, there's a real change in world dynamics right now. And so, we actually have interest and demand for probably 4 entire plants of isotopes, which would be fully sold out on day one if we had the option to build them. So that's the kind of interest we've got from other customers. But the Chinese contract was the first one we signed.
Paul, ASP Isotopes has made it clear that of the many potential avenues that it can take with enriched isotopes, molybdenum-100 for the diagnostic imaging market is foremost. That agreement we were talking about with the Beijing Research Institute of Chemical Engineering Metallurgy, which was announced just days after your company went public, underlines this commitment. Give us some background on molybdenum, or Moly-100. Tell us why it is important to diagnostic imaging, and please tell us why diagnostic imaging is important to ASP Isotopes.
Thanks. Yeah. So, so Moly-100 or molybdenum-100 is one of the first isotopes we're looking to sell. But right now, the biggest nuclear imaging contrast media is molybdenum-99, which is about a $3.5 billion market. And it's producing 10 nuclear reactors around the world. And 9 of those 10 reactors are going to shut down between now and the end of the decade, or they're scheduled to shut down between now and the end of the decade. They've reached the end of their useful life. So the world is trying to find a new source of molybdenum-99, which ultimately becomes technetium-99 and is used in the patient. And molybdenum-100 be that alternative. And so we're hoping that the molybdenum-100 we will be able to sell will be able to replace a lot of that molybdenum-99 that's currently used in the marketplace today. Molybdenum-99 also has a 66-hour half-life, so it halves in value every 2.5 days. You can imagine shipping a material around the world that's halving in value every 2.5 days and keeping it on the shelf. Terribly complex supply chain. And molybdenum-100 solves a lot of those problems. We're hoping the market will be excited to see our molybdenum-100 available.
Paul, thank you for that explanation of molybdenum-100. Can you give us some background on another important isotope, silicon-28?
Silicon-28 is going to be required to enable a lot of future computer technologies, such as quantum computing. What you find is that silicon's got 3 isotopes, 28, 29, and 30, and the 29 essentially blocks the current or stops the conductivity of the semiconductor. If you remove that 29, your conductivity increases thousands of fold. And so to enable quantum computing, silicon-28 is going to be needed. Now, semiconductor manufacturers use a gas called silane, which is a very light gas, and that cannot be enriched in a traditional centrifuge. It's too light. So other enrichers of isotopes need to increase the mass of their product and then turn it into a finished product at the end. We can just enrich exactly what the customer wants. So it means we can get it much more pure, much more cheaply. And so there's a lot of interest from governments and semiconductor manufacturers about our ability to be able to supply silicon-28. And we're in discussion with quite a few of those companies about a potential, supply of those in future years.
Paul, you've been touching on this in our discussion so far. I want to just delve a little more deeply into the fact that many of those nuclear reactors, those research nuclear reactors, are in China and Russia, and they are slated to be phased out. I want to talk about how you are an environmentally friendly producer of isotopes, and also just explain to us how your company's methods are superior over the current standards.
Yeah, well, superior is quite a big word to use, but different and has advantages, I would say. So first of all, our plants are very quick and cheap to construct. Unlike a big centrifuge, it has a spinning kind of tube. Our tubes are stationary and we spin the gas inside the tube. So there aren't any moving components, makes it much quicker and simpler to build. So it's a very green, environmentally friendly process. There's no waste material. We take a product, then we basically separate one part out of it and we give the rest of it back to the marketplace again. So it's very environmentally, there's no real radioactive waste or anything. It's a very efficient way to find products for the future.
Paul, I think it's fair to say that ASP Isotopes means to be an industry disruptor. However, unlike many industry disruptors, for example in biotech, in which hundreds of millions of dollars and years of regulatory hurdles are needed to get something up and running, ASP Isotopes requires a much smaller initial investment and shorter timeline. Tell us more about the attractiveness of ASP Isotopes to investors interested in disruptive technologies and companies.
Our scientists have spent about 20 years developing this technology. So while yes, in other industries, a lot of development work and research work that needs to happen to get something to be able to disrupt an industry, that's already taken place during our company. And now it's about commercializing this technology and bringing it to the market to be able to enrich isotopes that the world needs. And so, a small amount of research is required to modify the design for a particular element or a particular product, but a lot of the research has already taken place. And whether we're a disruptor or not, I don't know. I'm not sure we need to be a disruptor, quite frankly, to be able to find a place in this market. It seems that the market is desperate for new suppliers of isotopes, and we're here ready to help.
Paul, give us the essential value proposition. Why should investors take an interest in ASP Isotopes right now?
Yeah, so listen, the whole industry is at a dynamic point right now. We've got a lot of demand for new isotopes that haven't been produced before. At the same time, the traditional producers of isotopes are either shutting down or we're seeing kind of disruptions. And so the whole industry is in a state of flux. And we're a very nimble company able to respond to that because of the time and speed at which it costs us to build a new centrifuge or a new enrichment facility. So that should hopefully mean a return on capital is very high, and we're able to generate a substantial amount of free cash flow from these plants we build. And in my experience, lots of free cash flow means a higher share price.
Sounds good to me, Paul. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you as well. Thank you for having me.
Now, to get more information on ASP Isotopes, visit ASPIinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free. You can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. Now let's recap the companies you met today. First, you met Aptorum Group, stock symbol APM on the NASDAQ. Aptorum's 4 core assets, target indications with a combined market value of more than $250 billion. The company is building a diverse portfolio of over 12 projects, primarily in therapeutics and diagnostics across a wide range of unmet disease areas. After reporting positive data from 2 successful phase 1 trials last year, the company is now preparing to launch proof of concept studies. With multiple shots on goal and revenues from the commercialization of a woman's health supplement, Aptorum provides a compelling opportunity for investors. Again, to learn more about Aptorum Group, visit aptoruminfo.com. Then you met ASP Isotopes, stock symbol ASPI on the NASDAQ. ASP Isotopes is currently constructing a production plant in South Africa to address significant interest from potential customers. With volumes already exceeding 100% of the capacity of the first plant, the company intends to enter into a take-or-pay style offtake agreements with customers. And by 2028, ASP Isotopes expects to be a leading supplier of non-nuclear enriched isotopes, generating over $150 million in EBITDA per annum. Learn more by visiting ASPIinfo.com. Again, if you have any questions about any of the public companies featured on today's show, please call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile asset class. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new exciting emerging growth companies.